Welcome to Everything Elon Musk Said Today, where I go through everything Elon said on X in the last 24 hours. And Elon said solar will be 100% of energy generation long term. It took just 8 years for solar to go from 100 terawatt hours to 1,000 terawatt hours of power, and then just 3 years to achieve the next 1,000 terawatt hours. And this graph shows you how fast solar electricity generation is scaling compared to wind, nuclear, gas, coal, hydro. It's scaling faster than all of those. And solar is going to need to keep ramping because today Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas predicted that the physical work conducted by 1 billion humanoid robots, excluding their training, may require over 4,000 terawatt hours of incremental annual electricity demand, which is roughly equal to one full United States electric grid today. And Elon replied saying that it's actually going to require way more energy to satisfy the workload of these bots. That means we might require potentially multiple US electric grids worth of power, and Elon could be referring to the fact that Morgan Stanley was excluding the training. And Elon's expressed concern in the last couple of weeks about how much energy we're going to need for these data centers. And Elon reposted this AI-generated video that shows what the planet could look like once we achieve type 1 Kardashev scale, where we harness all the energy on this planet. And on the topic of energy, Tesla Nevada's team just built their 1 millionth Powerwall, and Elon said, "Great work by Tesla at Nevada." But there's also going to be energy needing to be harvested on Mars. And Deborah says when the spaceships land on Mars, Optimus will be the first to set foot there. And it's going to take several Optimists to install the solar panels needed to power the first Martian complex. It will also be necessary to build garages for the starships and collect as much data as possible to prepare for the arrival of humans on Mars. And there's some Optimus bots setting up solar panels, and Elon replied to this saying, "There's also going to be a lot of humans in the early innings of setting up that Mars infrastructure." And this stainless steel rocket ship is what is going to get us there. And Phil Truby today was telling some stories about how Elon can admit mistakes, and when he's presented with new data, he can change his mind on things. And initially, Starship was not intended to be stainless steel. It was going to be manufactured using traditional carbon fiber composite materials. And this is the giant mandrel they bought in as a mold. But after realizing how time-consuming, expensive, and inefficient it was, he racked his brain for an alternative. That's when he came up with a totally batshit crazy idea of using stainless steel. No one uses stainless steel for rockets because it's too heavy. But he pushed his engineering team to do the calculations, and they realized that stainless steel had many other advantages like thermal performance, cost, speed of manufacturing, etc. So the giant mandrel that they brought in and the normal way of making rockets was abandoned. And Elon replied saying, actually, early Atlas rockets did use stainless, but it was certainly considered to be far inferior to composites, which he says was an incorrect perception at the time. And all things considered, including strain-hardened strength at cryo, toughness, ease of welding on attachments, and no need for paint and resistance to high temperatures during atmospheric entry, steel beats composites for Starship, and it costs 2% as much. 2%. And Phil recalls that Elon had to convince his engineers to actually work on a stainless steel rocket. People think Elon can just say things and it'll get done, but anyone who has worked with engineers know they are a very skeptical bunch who generally don't like changing their minds on things. And it's also why Elon is so unusual, because he's an engineer that does actually change his mind when it makes sense to. He's not extremely stubborn all the time. And there's another story about building the autopilot software we need to dive into that showcases Elon's ability to change his mind. Today, Elon quoted himself on a post back from 2015 where he said, "We're ramping up the autopilot software team at Tesla to achieve generalized full autonomy. If interested, send me an email." So he quoted this and said, "This tweet 9 years ago is how I started the autopilot, now AI team at Tesla. Ashik, who now leads the team, was the first person I interviewed. Milan, who leads Optimus, also joined very early. Many of the key people in Tesla AI have been there from the beginning." And Phil quoted this tweet and said that story wasn't so simple. The one and only time I met Elon was in June 2013 during the battery swap demo event. The Model S had just begun volume production, and Elon was still unknown enough that he walked the crowd before his demo. And I knew that a month before, Elon gave a Bloomberg interview saying that we should have autopilot in cars similar to what we have in planes. So when Elon showed up and my friend wanted me to take a picture of him with Elon, I was ready for my question. What kind of AI will be needed for autopilot? I was ready to ask him. Now, I hadn't done any homework on what kind of person Elon was beforehand. And as I discovered later on, when discussing technical topics, he is very intense. He challenges his engineers ruthlessly to make sure they know what they're talking about. And I say this as a poor excuse for what happened next, but Elon, in a very intense way, said, "We don't need AI." My brain froze. I was expecting words like symbolic or neural nets, but not no AI. I literally couldn't think of what to say, and Elon looked a bit disappointed and just moved on. And I've replayed this aborted conversation a million times in my head since. Maybe I should have said, well, maybe not AGI, but you have to do scene understanding via neural nets, right? And I'm not casting shade on Elon here. AI was still in a long, dark winter of hyped expectations and then disappointing results dating all the way back to the 80s. But ironically, 2012-2013 was the time that AlexNet came out and showed researchers that neural nets and the GPUs to run them were the way forward, but not many knew that at the time, to be fair. So anyways, Tesla partnered with Mobileye to deliver their first autopilot system in 2014. It only worked on the freeway and it did adaptive cruise control, but it also steered the car to stay in lane. And interestingly, the Mobileye chip, the IQ3, did not use what we would consider modern AI algorithms. It used relatively simple convolutional neural networks combined with traditional hard-coded computer vision algorithms to do things like lane detection. And then a year later, Elon kicks off this internal AI effort. So why did I mention all this? Because it shows how Elon changes his mind when he gets more data. In 2 years, during the time that AI was undergoing a revolution, Elon went from "we don't need AI" to building an in-house AI team. He is egoless when it comes to big strategic decisions. And Elon will be the first to admit he makes mistakes, but he isn't too proud to realize it and change course. And that's exactly what you want in a technical leader. Leaders need to make decisions and then change those decisions when the world changes around them, especially in a fast-moving technological industry. And Elon responded saying, accurate. And about a year ago, in June 2024, Ashok Ellaswamy, the head of Tesla Autopilot, posted this article talking about how Elon Musk has been the key driver of AI and autonomy at Tesla. And today Elon reposted it. And I'll link this article in the description of the video. One interesting story is back in 2014 when Autopilot started, it only had a tiny computer that only had 384 kilobytes of memory and puny compute. And Elon asked the engineering team to implement lane keeping and lane changing, and many, even in the team, thought that the request was crazy. And Ashok says Elon never gave up and he pushed the team to achieve this very difficult goal. And then in 2017, Tesla started designing their own custom silicon to run their own AI hardware. It came to production in February 2019 and remains extremely competitive with hardware coming out today. It is still able to run the latest end-to-end neural networks built on top of the latest AI technology. Elon was the one who bet on vision and AI to solve autonomy instead of relying on sensors and high-definition maps. And today Tesla has the least amount of raw sensors yet have the most autonomous capability compared to any production car. And Ashok says this was only possible because of Elon's extreme conviction and deep understanding of the problem. Elon also kickstarted the work on humanoid robots in 2021, and this was again before any ChatGPT or other obvious examples of the rise of AI. And Ashok says he could go on, but plainly put, Elon is critical for Tesla's success in AI. And all of that, and Elon has not received a single dollar from Tesla for 7 years. Despite increasing the value of the company by over 2,000% in that time frame. And Andreessen Horowitz says Elon has this Tesla Optimus robot that he's building, and man, robotics is going to be the biggest industry on the planet. And Elon reposted that one. And Popular Mechanics writes that humanity may achieve the singularity within the next 6 months. And Elon replied saying singularity is near. And singularity is when AI surpasses human intelligence. And so some humans might prefer to get a Neuralink into their brain to help them stay intelligent relative to AI. And today Neuralink announced that they are doing a Series E fundraiser with $650 million raised from key investors including ARK Invest, Founders Fund, and Valor Equity Partners, to name a couple of them. Neuralink is building technology to transform people's lives, helping restore autonomy to those with motor, speech, or vision impairment by enabling them to control computers and robotic arms with their minds, output verbal thought as text, and generate visual perception. With this funding, we accelerate our path to bringing life-changing capabilities to more people and continue pushing the boundaries of what's possible with brain-computer interfaces and you guys might be able to get some exposure to this private company through these funds. And Neuralink announced that in sharing our story with investors in our internal team as they raised money, we realized there's no reason we shouldn't share that very same story with the rest of the world. When I first read that, I thought they were about to go public, but then it says, so in 2 weeks we'll have a public demo where we share that presentation with some bonus content. Stay tuned. And this will be like the third company talk that we get from Elon this month. He did one at Tesla a couple weeks ago. He did one at SpaceX this week. And now he's going to do a company at Neuralink. So the guy is back, man. But then he posted another video of himself playing Diablo 4. And I'm not sure how back he is. He just reached level 117 in the pit. He's hardcore rank number 1. Somebody asked, is this harder to do or Grok 3.5? And Elon replied, Grok 3.5 LMAO. And someone said, hey yo, Kikius, why don't you start from scratch and level yourself? This is of course related to the accusations that Elon Musk has hired somebody to level up his Diablo 4 character. And Elon replied saying, if I wanted to have someone else level max my character, it would already be at level 300, not 277. So he's pretty much saying, I'm not boosting. And that's pretty insane if that's true. And speaking of Kikius Maximus, Elon is mocking the Atlantic here. He says another great piece from the Atlantic, showcasing a fake article reading Kikius Maximus, Emperor of Memes. And Elon agrees that Poland just dodged a massive bullet by not allowing this Soros puppet to win, otherwise known as Alex Soros, and Elon responded 100. And within 24 hours of Elon's salute, CNN was in full propaganda mode. They were booking Democrats to emphatically declare it was a Nazi salute. Acosta said he used a hand gesture that looked like a Nazi salute. Garcia said that was a Nazi salute. If you talk to anyone like historians, folks actually study the Nazis and study this actual kind of disgusting display. And they've been very clear about what that was. We don't want an apology for him. He should be condemned for those kinds of actions. It's gross and disgusting. And then CNN, 24 hours after Cory Booker made an identical gesture yesterday, crickets. And Elon quoted this and said, who's in charge at CNN? So one of these salutes is problematic and the other is totally fine. Welcome to the double standard, and Piers Morgan says it's most amusing to watch all the people who branded Musk a Nazi now tying themselves in tortured knots trying to explain why Cory Booker isn't, for doing the exact same thing. Hypocrisy stinks. Polymath says, I'm slowly becoming radicalized by this. I have lefty friends who have said without qualification that Elon Musk is an anti-Semite and a Nazi, but then their response to the actually racially targeted murder of Jews, which unfortunately happened yesterday in Boulder, Colorado, where a suspect threw Molotov cocktails at a march supporting Israeli hostages and injured 12 people, and it doesn't get any attention. And Elon Musk says, But here's the real height of the Colosseum, represented by 2,000 drones. That's right, the Colosseum used to stand at 48 meters high, and it was built in 80 AD, which means it is 1945 years old, and it has been eroded in half over time. And on the topic of history, Elon quoted this history thread that talks about why Western civilization has largely been a force for good, and it's really long, but it goes into the good things that the British Empire did, and I'll post a link to this in the description if you're interested. And Elon agrees with Charlie Kirk that white privilege is a racist, bitter lie. And X is now the #1 news app on the App Store in France. It's the #1 news app in over 140 countries. And Autism Capital thinks that making disappearing tweets could be a good idea, where you schedule a tweet to disappear in 2 days, for example. Because you might be responding to a UFC event that's relevant at the time, but you know that in 2 days nobody's going to care, and it's just going to be confusing to people if they see it on their timeline in 2 days. So you should be able to schedule it to be deleted, and it will reduce bloat on the site. And Elon says, interesting idea. And Elon says X Chat will roll out to all users this week if there are no scaling issues. X Chat is a new type of DMs that supports audio and video calling and has vanishing messages that are encrypted. And Elon is surprised that over 1,000 people per month are arrested in the UK over social media posts. With the exception of the USA, freedom of speech doesn't really exist. The rules, boundaries, and transparency just differ country to country. And the CIA has expanded its official presence on X. Make sure to follow the official CIA accounts for the latest agency news and updates. And Elon quoted that with some detective emojis. And Elon replied to Dr. Pat Soon, who used a hashtag in his post, that hashtags are not needed anymore. And Elon agrees with Mike Lee that we must free ourselves from this vicious 7-step cycle. The government expands, and then this larger government becomes abusive, and so voters demand reform. But leftists then insist that people will die if reform is achieved. So no one questions their assertions lest they seem unsympathetic. And so the reform efforts are abandoned and the government continues to expand. And Elon reposted that one and responded with a bullseye. And Tesla sales in Norway are up 213% year over year. And Tesla sales surged in Austria for May. It was their second best May sales ever recorded, and 29% increase compared to last May. And Jensen Huang, the Nvidia CEO, just said on Tesla that they are safer, they are more convenient, and they are more fun to drive. He praised Tesla for leading the way in self-driving tech. And Tesla AI posted this movie title, The Future is Autonomous, and Elon reposted this one along with all of those Tesla-related posts that I just covered. And so that is everything Elon said today. And if you guys want early access to these videos or you just want to support the channel, make sure you join the channel as a member, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.